All right, let's get on with the part 2 of Photon.
It's only the next generations who begin to grasp that. The wandering goes on for several thousand years. The offspring is a bit smarter. A volcanic explosion on the opposite side of the globe reduces their number to a few thousand.
Now it's showing Earth. It's just insane to think about at the beginning of this docu-series. You know, I'm thinking about to the episode 1 where I initially started the documentary. You know, the reason why I wanted to do a commentary was I watched 5 minutes and it was like super interesting. So I was like, okay, let me do this series and give it a reaction and record it and maybe share it with people and have other people watch it too, because it's interesting. It's just crazy to think about, like in the beginning, it talked about a single dot, right? I mean, the world was structured and layered with theory and hypotheses and like given that there was a single photon, given that, you know, it's all densely packed, or there's a lot of givens in there to create this world, but it's because it's evidently true from what we can see today. But it's insane to come from that to this, where now we have living organisms. And, you know, I'm going to talk about it later. I want to first watch, and towards the end, I'll talk about more about it. But it's just crazy to see where we started to where we came to, you know, Earth here, planet, volcanoes, and not conscious, but self-aware, I guess, self-acting organisms at
Every
a
transcription is precious,
mammal level,
as
trying
these
to
are
figure
probably
out
the
and
world's
survive.
most complex structures. The ones who straighten their backs see more. Keeping bodies straight is tiring. They do it seldom, but in the better nourished herds, it's become a habit to imitate. This thin layer of cells gets denser with every generation, which is why communication within the herd gets much better. These brains discern minor nuance. Body language is faster than sound, energy saving. Expressive eye whites make it easier to read directions of looks.
Yo, that's crazy. Who was it? Was it Joe Rogan? Somebody on the podcast said that initially, like the reason why there's white. Oh no, it was, I think, Jordan Peterson. He said the reason why we have the outside part of the eye, not the iris, but the white part of the eye, is for communication reasons. So if I was, let's say, thousands of years ago as a caveman and I had completely like blacked eye, you know, like if you look at some gorillas or chimps, there's no distinction from an iris to the eyeball. I wonder if I can find some chimps picture. Okay, let's look at chimps. There's gotta be some picture. So here's a good one. So if you look at this, you can see that this is not how our eyes are. And I think this documentary just said it's for communication purposes, which is mentioned by Jordan Peterson on one of his lectures, is that it is our way for us to talk together as a tribe, as a herd, as a pack, for signals of danger or whatever, love, or to see where we are looking at. So if I look at a chimpanzee over there, let's say I'm a chimp, I'm a gorilla, whatever, and I look at my fellow chimp over there and he's looking that way and not towards me, even if his head is like towards me, if his eyes like this, then we know he's consciously aware of that space and time in that direction. So we give attention to that. It's for us to read body languages and stuff like that too. I think this documentary just said it, and that's what's interesting.
In it, it's much better
because it's going into the brain now, the development of the brain, and how amazing it is.
Body language is faster than sound, energy saving. Expressive eye whites make it easier to read directions of looks. Expressive eye whites make...
Expressive eye whites? I don't know what that is, but it's talking about the eye.
Make it easier to read directions of looks.
It makes it easier to read the direction of looks. Yeah. And for what reason? Probably because
tools.
For communications.
This is something you can't transfer in the string.
Development
the young
tools.
Mimic the parents. For the first time, weaker individuals are valuable. They are carriers of behavior which is not there in the strings. It's in the brains instead, as a sustained impulse flow. In 100,000 years, this will be named culture.
Culture. Mm-hmm. How did he just describe culture?
Weaker individuals.
Weaker individuals are valuable. For what reason?
They're carriers of behavior, which is
They're carriers of behavior. So our traits, our characteristics.
They're in the strings.
They're not in.
It's in the brains instead.
They're not in the streams of DNA, the coding, the atoms. It's in the brain.
As a sustained impulse flow.
Maybe morality and ethics comes into this.
This will be named culture.
Culture. And culture is such a broad term, it encompasses a lot, but I mean, technically, a religious country, that's a culture. They build culture around that religion and practice religion in their own way. Culture could be just behavior, you know, the everyday life of, like, let's say South Koreans who are very atheistic or spiritual. They don't really, I'm South Korean. I never went to a South Korean household where they, as a uniform, acted a certain way due to, let's say, Christianity or Buddhism. None. They don't have that type of, they have their own, but it's not really tied in with religion. Whereas if you go to a Latino household here in the States, 99% of them kind of pray before they eat. That's a religious culture. So all of this is carried on in the brain.
One of the most contagious
Which means it's man-made. That's what it's saying, is that it's man-made. Ultimately, that's what it's saying, right? Because we are the brains. We are, like, it's not saying it's carried on by the atoms at the subatomic level. It's a phenomenon that happened within after the construction of brain. Culture. I think that's what the documentary is trying to say, unless I'm stupid and I'm not understanding this correctly.
The whole group becomes a superior survival capsule. Mm-hmm. It's bound by social ties, simple emotions, and beginnings of love as we know it.
This is dark, man. This is dark for its own reason, because he said as love as we know it, and he's, you know, as what the narrator or the director of this document is insinuating from the beginning of the documentary until what are we at, 50 minutes, so about halfway, is that I get the tint of him questioning the philosophy and just how, you know, like, it might get like existential and stuff, but how, like, disposable we are, or how there's no importance, there's no what would you say it, how would you say it, there's no self-worth, there's no worth, you know, there's no in intrinsic worth in ourselves. Everything is like survival. And we've just put pretty flowers on that survival part with narratives to make it pretty. But at the end of the day, from the beginning of time until now, from particles, subatomic particles, to atoms, to molecules, to the construction of very simple life organisms, until the mammal itself and the tribe and the mentality surrounding the tribe of gorillas and their idea of love is all for longevity of life itself, like longevity of that initial moment at the subatomic level. From then to now, nothing has changed except the fact that we as mammals, as humans, came conscious and started being aware. And in order to escape the existentialism, we invented the idea of love. And I think that's what he's insinuating, is that love even itself is an idea. That it is all for longevity ever since the beginning of time, to multiply, to duplicate, to reproduce, to procreate. And it's very dark. This documentary is dark. And if some people looked at it the way I did, I'm sure it would be very scary to them too. What is this?
Multiplying bodies is still vital for the strings.
Wait, hold on.
Protecting
Is this
the brain
allowed?
gets more important than ever.
I have no idea if this is allowed.
Biology goes hand in hand.
How? Okay, if this is on YouTube, it's okay, right? Like, I hope I don't get in trouble for that.
Hand with culture.
But I gotta listen to what he said.
Multiplying bodies is still vital for the strings, but protecting the brain gets more important than ever. From now on, biology goes hand in hand with culture. Next to the dead body, they lay down tools and hides in case she wakes up.
I see what it... Okay.
The brain is dense enough to allow creating event simulation. No risk, no need to leave the cave. Today, we call it imagination. Fear of harsh weather gets combined with fear of predators.
Wow.
That I don't know how to show, but see what's before my eyes when I think of those days. Like an impression. In the more developed brains emerges a sensation of some impalpable being of tremendous supremacy.
Boogie monsters, gods, demons, devils, cultures with spirits. It is a result of the brain's mechanism to defend itself to the ultimate possibility, and that imagination, or AKA mini simulations, it said, because the brain is thick enough and dense enough to do it, is a defense mechanism, and we call that anxiety today.
Local fantasies can be seen in rituals. These behaviors are transferred by mimicry from one generation to the next. They make their way into brains of more and more beings. They make their way into brains of more and more beings.
Wings? Okay.
In only a few thousand years, the wide notion of God comes about, where the situation is stable. Faith in a protective and kind deity is usually formed, like a flow of opium milk. But where nature is brutal, what develops most often is a belief in a capricious deity, clotted milk, compote, and smells. Religious behaviors also mutate. Those which help survive last in millions of brains of patterns of neuron activity. Thousands of years later, only a few prominent religious behaviors remain on the globe. People reside in groups of a few hundred, often near rivers. In these small social cells, simple punishment
Is that a... What the fuck am I watching, bro? I thought this is something like in the brain, but I actually think I'm watching a penis fuck a hole right now. And
is developed concerning incest and all actions which
oh my God, hold
simple
on.
often near rivers. In these small social cells, simple punishment is developed concerning incest and all actions which lead to degradation in the group. For instance, having several partners at a time is a tough challenge. It's a constant fight with other males, which is probably why monogamous relationships get more numerous. Individuals living outside norms are expelled from groups. Clear bans for harmful behavior arise. With small populations, it's especially important. We call it law today.
So this documentary is not walking through us, right? Like how we came to be to
Extreme
modern
conservatism,
time.
however,
And an explanation, an attempt at explaining human behavior, an organism, a mammal's behavior, to get to where it's at, where we have laws, we have culture, we have instincts, we have, you know, like societal structures and hierarchy of priority when it comes to people of importance and why we behave the way we do. I mean, before the formulation of brain, it was just purely about survival. But now, with the formulation of brain, it's also about continuing and the longevity of culture and idea and what we know, like because our intelligence also matters on our longevity. So now it's the preservation of the brain, the smartest brain, and the smartest brains are trying to make sure that culture stays alive so only the smartest brains can live on.
leads to a lack of
That is what I think is going on.
Group degradation follows.
Racism. He's going to talk about racism now.
Too many
Group
mischief
degradation.
makers, in turn, cause disappearance of rules and create chaos, which also devastates the tribe. Religions and laws usually promote conservatism, striving at keeping up tribe behaviors. In this way, a shaky balance between stability and elasticity of societies is kept. Oh, sorry.
Nope, it can pop
Over
anytime.
thousands of years, this self-regulation turns out to foster the longevity of the largest groups. As a result, the DNA strings are doing better than ever. I've just
Exactly like
presented
what I
10
said.
million years in 4 minutes. Sorry, but it's good sometimes to see these things from the DNA strings perspective, not like human only.
Ale przecież w każdej kulturze są osoby podejrzliwe wobec wizji świata nauki. Takie osoby muszą uwierzyć na słowo, że gdzieś głęboko w atomach są kwarki, że te łańcuchy DNA rzeczywiście mają po pół metra. Te osoby muszą uwierzyć na słowo, że...
Co, lądowanie na Księżycu? Nic nie muszą. Wie pani, proszę tu napluć.
Słucham?
Nie no, proszę napluć.
No dobrze.
Dziękuję.
Innymi słowy chodzi mi o to, że to jest pańska historia świata, ale są też inne.
No tak, z tym jest właśnie problem. Jeśli komuś nie podobają się te kinezyny chodzące po DNA, twierdzi, że to jest zbyt naciągnięte, żeby było prawdziwe, że fotony to jakaś nasza bajka równoważna z innymi bajkami, no to taka osoba powinna poszukać sobie kraju, gdzie prawa fizyki są bardziej przystępne, molekuły większe, filozoficznie łagodne. Takich osób nic nie przekona. No. A to, co jest pod mikroskopem, to jest taki, jaki jest. I sami nie wiemy dlaczego. No ale ta niewiedza jest w gruncie rzeczy dużo lepsza niż z góry znane odpowiedzi. O. To jest nitka pani DNA. Jeszcze po niej pewno jeżdżą kinezyny. Możemy zejść na dół i zobaczyć to na żywca.
String division in people is a dramatic process. You're really lucky to have been able to hatch. Look how little you need for something to go wrong. A couple of atoms. Day one. It starts out classic. A farmer's spermatozoons carrying string. They swarm around the female egg, dissolving the wall. It plants tangled string inside.
That's so crazy.
Some proteins attach immediately. It's a nucleosome. It spins the string onto its disc, as discs allow efficient packing. They curl into cigars. They're chromosomes. The microtubule spindle helps to compress and makes them stand on end.
Wow.
This hook is a kinetochore. Here it checks if division should start. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. But now, dinins and kinesins drag along the spindle, regulating the load. Braces let out cigars and spindles draw backwards, spreading out up there. See, there's a problem with this bracket. It hasn't let out a cigar to divide. It's been left inside, one too many. The body is growing. Riplosomes copy with an error.
They're copying with error.
Day 3, 8 capsules now.
I'm guessing this is the egg attached to the utero. Or the baby now. Three millimeters. Keeps growing, just like that. I wonder how they filmed these. I wonder if this is a computer, like a computer-generated graphics. 2 centimeters. It has to be, right? But it looks so real. Like this right here looks so real. There's a human baby. I'm pretty sure he said it's making with error, so I'm just...
Oh, a loop. Another problem.
Uh-oh. That's not good. Oh no.
And again, tape wound in the tape recorder. And now, it multiplies over limbs. Slightly altered protein is formed.
Oh my god, why? Holy shit.
The child grows, has Down syndrome, and problems with its fingers. The parents don't know that yet.
Oh my god.
The body takes shape. I don't have to remind you what it's all made of.
Atoms. Bro, this is some dark documentary. What the fuck am I watching? Oh my god, that's horrible.
Boy or girl? Brain structures responsible for the sex form quite slowly. The primary pattern is female. It's only the soaking with testosterone that makes the difference. That one's a boy. Or not. Maybe. Not much hormone. Probably a boy, but with a brain built like a female's.
What is that? Oh, this is the vagina. This is the birth. See, the baby wants to come out.
The environment will shape the rest.
Yo, this documentary is
Wasz
something.
instytut wydał wczoraj 300 000 na badania nad wolną wolą. Co ma wolna wola do nauk ścisłych?
Te badania są nam potrzebne, żeby znaleźć lek osłabiający natręctwa myślowe i depresję przy chorobie Parkinsona. Jesteśmy naprawdę blisko. No i zresztą akurat zespół pośrednio dostał nagrodę właśnie za to.
Za walkę z natręctwami czy z Parkinsonem?
Obydwa. Myślę, że tu w tym budynku są przynajmniej 2 osoby cierpiące na natręctwa myślowe. I to nie jest oczywiście częste mycie rąk, bo z tym można jakoś żyć. Mówię o natręctwach myślowych, na przykład o obawie przed utratą kontroli czy robieniem paskudnych rzeczy. To potrafi niszczyć ludziom życie. Naprawdę, na przykład ludzie, na przykład u osób mocno religijnych, to są często myśli świętokradcze, pornograficzne, nie wiem, wyobrażenia na pogrzebie siostry, nie wiem, no.
Beyond mankind. This documentary is thought-provoking. Let's just say that.
Let's deal with the organ which enabled such a tiny group of beings to change so much all over the globe.
Okay. Let's. This ominous piano music is just to this documentary. Fucking.
This is my father, Stanislav.
It's your father? Okay, okay. What is he doing? He's like a mad scientist. Doing some
I
crazy
don't
stuff.
want to discuss the brain as they do in school, on anonymous drawings and dummies. I like it truer, for you to feel that all of it concerns you every day. Let's look at Stanislav's brain. The deeper the area, the more basic function it holds. This is the brainstem, a primitive reptile part. Breathing, heartbeat, salivating, digestion.
Okay.
This part is the limbic part, responsible for emotions and simple social behaviours.
Okay.
And back there is the cerebellum, motion coordination.
Oof, that's where you
The
don't want to
outer
get hit.
ridged layer is the area in which complex processes are processed. The point of that joke about the Prime Minister, calculations, awareness of the self, and imagination. Obviously, the borders are not sharp. Our behaviour results from a rhythmic melody of these structures. When the melody loses the rhythm, problems arise. Stanislav, for instance, has Parkinson's, but that's for later. Looking closer, the knots turn out to be capsules called neurons.
Neurons.
Of course, each of them is a capsule for the string. It can also send information. The way this happens is extraordinary. Current flow in an integrated circuit is nothing compared to this. Ordinary current is electrons flowing in a specific direction. In the brain, it's different. Everyone seems to realise that, but somehow, showing nervous impulse as Christmas lights is an embarrassment and introduces bad thinking habits.
Okay. So how does it actually work then?
It gets more interesting. Here we have an atom surplus. They want to mix with the ones inside, but a wall separates them. Nature strives at levelling out surplus, so tension is produced. The capsule wall is a membrane spiked with valves, which eventually let go, in a rhythm that makes it a cascade of pumpings. This thing is an impulse. This is how our thoughts flow, not like on a wire. The average impulse speed is 100 kilometers per hour.
Oh my god, bro. So you're telling me I am a mere product of this? A flow, an ebb and flow of something positive and negative? Is it atoms or neutrons or protons and negatrons and neutrons or whatever? Something positive and a negative, and nature, God itself, God himself wants to keep us balanced. So it's deposit, withdraw, deposit, withdraw, deposit, withdraw. And I'm sure drugs affect these canals, right? Or like caffeine, for example, attaches to the brain's receptors somehow. I wonder if this documentary is going to show us
On
that.
the tip,
But
excitement
this
makes
is super interesting stuff, guys. I mean, this is the stuff that makes me like really excited to watch till the end. You know, I can't just watch anything because I get too bored. It's just too dry, you know. But stuff like this, love it.
bags with
Great
dust
documentary.
open, professionally called neurotransmitters, but you can also say dust. These are super tiny particles, a few dozen atoms at the most. Upon release, they cling to channels at the other side. The energy cascade moves on, and the rest of the dust gets absorbed and packed in bags again. Why does the brain need these breaks? To regulate the impulse flow more precisely, among other things. We have several kinds of dust. For instance, shortage in this, dopamine, gives symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Too little dust, and impulses do not move on, which in effect interferes with Stanislav's muscle performance.
Oh wow, that's so scary.
I'd like to apologise in advance to my colleagues for the scandalous simplification. To be fair with this, I'd have to make a TV series on synapses. Look at Amelia for a change, Stanislav's wife. She's making a scarf for her husband. Counting the rows, you can see the activation of areas above the ears. A branch of this neuron is a dendrite. In real time, little stems form on its walls and die, and so it goes. Stems are surrounded with a molecular scaffolding. It's actin. Its growth influences the shape of stems. A pause for biologists. This is cophyllin, for instance. It helps to grow the scaffolding. And here's the ARP2 to 3 joint. A friend of mine invented the name. Why does my mother need it at all? Let's see. She's counting the rows. Each number remembered means physically thickening the dendrite stems. The scaffolding makes bridges between dendrites. The impulse goes another way. These seconds are enough to sustain attention over a row number. Not only the stems have scaffolding, whole neurons have it. Virtually all cells in your bodies. And this is Bruno. New transport for my string.
When he says it like that, it sounds so primal, and so dark. Stop being a scientist, you. Gonna give people depression here.
Bruno has a myriad of sensory receptors. They're dispersed throughout the body. In this strip of the brain, there's a map of sensation. If I were to show it in 3D, this sort of homunculus would form. The bigger the fragment, the more innervated the body region. In a dog, the map looks different.
That's so cool.
The guts are also mapped, but the resolution is much lower. Thankfully enough, as the sensation of swallowing in HD is some kind of gluey schizophrenia. Not to mention sex. Or excretion. Which is what my son is doing. Let's look at the drive of Bruno's intestines, although this concerns all of your muscles. Thick fibre is composed of minor ones, made up of even smaller ones, sarcomeres. All in all, it's almost the same scaffolding as in the brain. Actin in oblong form. Upon a signal from the brain, actin filaments are moved along in a mobile slat of myosin. A similar mechanism works in the heart, all your life without rest. Stuff moves through the intestines. I'm only showing one sarcomere, one fibre. But when a finger or poo are to be moved, this happens in bulk along all fibres.
It's the transition they do, you know. They show you the molecular level of what's going on, and then they bring it back to real life. It's just like completely over our heads as we live our daily lives. I don't know. Hey, this is on YouTube. I didn't go looking for this. YouTube found me to show me this. So if I get in trouble for this, I'm calling YouTube. I'm like, bro, what the hell?
By the way, have you ever seen a child's skull? Not much, but a second set of teeth is waiting there.
I didn't know that. I thought it came over time. I didn't know it was already there.
Stanislav is observing an object. Let's watch it in slow motion. Initially, Stanislav doesn't know what he's looking at, though he might have seen it many times. The backyard is penetrated by waves, the internet, cell phones, TV, the army. These are colourless vibrations, differentiated only by crest density. Atoms on a watermelon. The surrounding waves are bouncing off them. A photon spurt gushes into the eyes, passing through cloudy spots and sits in the back of the eye. Here, in the back of the eye, the waves are divided and transferred to the optic nerve, meeting in his head and then flowing into the back of the skull to the area known as V1. In V1, the signals from the eye are not understood as a watermelon. Part of the impulses go further onto V2, but they hook against memory areas, the melody of this shape as it overlaps with the pattern of red seen somewhere. Stanislav gets the impression of something red. Then there's dispersion onto other areas of V3, V4, and so on. A quarter of a second later, Stanislav does not know what he's looking at. The sum of signals gets through here, the hippocampus or the memory area. A comparison takes place with familiar objects. If it's positive, then signals reach consciousness, and somewhere in the front of his head, Stanislav senses, oh, a watermelon.
Wow.
The fruit has provoked an association with warm climes that he'd never visited. Subjectively, Stanislav senses this as regret. Sleep function is somewhat like defragmentation of nervous links, removing unfinished stems, thickening the ones often used. This is probably what brings forth dreams. Some kinds of dust get extinguished altogether. Whereas a stronger activity in the amygdala or the emotion area and the hippocampus or memory infuses dreams with strange images. the sleeper is not responsible for their content. This depends largely on proportions in dust and the memory's layout.
Why does it keep showing me this? He's having a nightmare.
Why does the body stay in bed despite such things under its eyelids? Because an ancient reticular formation here sends suppressing signals to the spinal cord and silences motor neurons. Sleepwalkers will disagree. Stanislav is asleep. We will take advantage of nighttime to discuss more mysterious matters. Each of us, including Amelia, has a sense of the self. I, Amelia. We place it somewhere in here. Or here. Yes, in my case, it's here. Close your eyes, please, and recall a toothache. It is a clear but elusive feeling. A percept. I see something like this. You see something else. And my question is, where does this impression come from? From some mental space? Is it enough to explain it as work of the neural network? How is the neuron tension converted to mental images in your mind? A little more is known about the imagination. Essentially, it is the ability to observe your own thoughts. We can instantly create a mind in the mind and engage in self-reflection. Imagination is simulating events without leaving home. In computers, it's called a virtual machine. You need a lot of RAM. In people who use their imagination professionally, these machines are often monstrous, at the cost of other skills, obviously. Look at a man of letters. He's polishing this sentence. I'll eat these stones off the wall while chewing. The shards will mix with my teeth into a single taste. The man of letters' trained system detects mess or energy wasting in the brain. Immediately, it strives at simplification. I eat stones. They're the taste of teeth. Perfect. Not more, not less. Those insensitive to literature will not sense the pleasant melody of this phrase. I eat stones. They are the taste of teeth. But as a biologist, I have a question. Where do people take things as refined as modern art from? One thing hung on another. Wood slats. Defacing. Nudity. And these freaking neons.
I don't know.
Some sort of evolutionary fitness for brains? Oh, and secretions.
Secretion.
Jak wygląda pański dzień w pracy?
To jest nudne, nic ciekawego. To głównie pisanie wniosków o granty.
No tak, tylko że ja mam na myśli tę bardziej twórczą część pracy biologa molekularnego. Mówi się o tym, że badacie przestrzeń.
Oj, nie, no zepsujemy reportaż.
No ale proszę przynajmniej spróbować nam o tym opowiedzieć. Tak jak 6-latkowi.
Wie pani, to jest tak, że ja dzielę tę przestrzeń na coraz mniejsze piksele, szukając tam nowych rzeczy, różnic. Ale w pewnym momencie nie mogę już odbić promienia, bo długość oświetlającej to fali fotonowej jest większa niż obserwowany wycinek przestrzeni. W związku z tym nie odbija się już z powrotem do oka. Wtedy trzeba przejść do obserwacji pośrednich.
A co to znaczy?
Pośrednie wykrywanie najmniejszych cząstek przypomina trochę pracę kryminologa na klatce schodowej. Obserwujemy ściany detektorów po zderzeniach tych najmniejszych cząstek i próbujemy zrozumieć, co tam zaszło. Naprawdę zdziwilibyście się Państwo, ile można odkryć na podstawie tych rozbryzgów z ofiar. No.
No dobrze, w takim razie ostatnie pytanie. W październikowym artykule Świata Nauki sugerował pan, że maszyny zupełnie prześcigną nas w myśleniu.
No, nie wiem, no powiedziałem trochę inaczej, ale nie mam pojęcia, co będzie w przyszłości.
No to może na koniec rozmowy spróbujmy bezczelnie przewidzieć ogólną tendencję rozwoju ludzkości. Życia w ogóle.
Ale nie wiem, czy pani sobie zdaje sprawę, że ja bardzo wiele ryzykuję, próbując zmyślić przyszłość na antenie.
No ale nikt nas z tego nie będzie rozliczał. To jest nasze wewnętrzne, redakcyjne nagranie.
To niepoważne.
Odtworzą ten wywiad za 100 lat w dniu pańskich urodzin i zobaczymy, jak bardzo pan przestrzelił.
Że od teraz
Tak, od dzisiaj.
Od dzisiaj w górę.
I don't know. Your brain's now working on the verge of transfer, mine as well. The fibers are so thin that a denser cortex seems impossible. Further condensation is noise, epilepsy, and static. That is probably why the internet, an excrescence on our brains, was created. In 2015, we already have several hundred satellites. They let out balloons so that the network covers the Earth like a second atmosphere. But let's go further. I imagine that there is no annihilation of humanity. The planet gets quite crammed, while electronic devices crawl closer and closer to human heads. And there is a way out from the century-long stagnation in physics. These flying cars must eventually come into existence. Americans still prohibit filming urban fountains as suspicious behaviour, but fear of terrorism gradually fades. Longing for the old aesthetics increases, which is why not much seems to be changing. Electronic fabrics enhance the eruption of motley chaos. Youths are out of ideas for mixing styles. They promote fashion for identical uniforms for everyone and total obedience. Nobody cares for terrorists. Quality of life improves. Even along the equator, physical suffering declines.
Trying to keep up with where it's going. I'm not exactly sure if it's painting a dystopian future. I think so. 70% of me think it is. But 30% of me is thinking, where is he going with this? Because he just said physical suffering declines. Nobody, like, what did it say? Quality of life has improved. Nobody cares about terrorists anymore. We'll see where he goes with it. What's going on with the dog?
The Otis Group is the first to copy a minute of dog's brain activity onto a data carrier. It then runs a clone on a virtual machine. We slowly enter the era of mind uploading. A mere several decades later, in the western wing of the headquarters, that data is successfully uploaded onto the brain of a volunteer. For the first time, if only for a few seconds, a human experiences directly what's going on in a dog's head.
Wow. Wow. This is sci-fi, but it's so cool. So now we're talking about the past
And does not forget
future.
after being unplugged. It is easier from here to form a human-to-human interface. Sugar is the first to volunteer. Brain activity is changed into a program. It can be put into various data carriers. 200 minds can be run simultaneously on bred networks. Of course, there are glitches from simplifications, but after Sugar's death, his consciousness lives on in many copies called instances. Serious ethical problems arise. Conservatives want to stop that, while in the meantime, tissue hardware proliferates. The biggest conflict of values since the artificial womb controversy seems imminent. A platform that allows adding and removing instances is created, according to needs.
So gene modification. Is that where this is going?
The connectome runs ceaselessly. No, it does not turn against humanity. It just needs cooling all over. It must be the most influential phenomenon since the internet. At first, the connectomes used to resolve genetic problems and develop new physics. But commercial applications of the connectome appear soon. It's only a few decades later that they managed to link the connectome with the old internet, which has been treated like air for a long time now. Most people breathe information. Memory is no longer necessary. Even chewing gum is connected to the network. Not to mention paper. The brain gets a bit smaller, but people don't get dumber. It's as if the body is less necessary. Age is prolonged to nonsensical limits. The world record is held by Ardol Unoro. His body keeps up the extended brain tissue for over 300 years.
Wow.
Which feels like 1,000 from inside.
You know you know what this makes me think about? We got about 10 minutes left. This makes me think about when Joe Rogan did a podcast with Graham. Graham Hancock, I think. He has a Netflix series too, and he's very big on Atlantis, the forgotten city underwater, Atlantis, and talking about ancient civilizations that had technology beyond our understanding. And Joe Rogan entertains it too. And, you know, at first I just kind of listened to it as if it's sci-fi. But now looking back at it, the Bible also talks about people living to certain hundreds of years. And ancient civilizations where there's record of humans and it's myths. We call them myths because we think that we are the ultimate. We are the best version of ourselves that we ever existed. Meaning like we're the most advanced, right? The general consensus is that there hasn't been a time in human history where we've had cell phones or like internet, something in the ether that connects us and we can share information. We just think we came from caveman to fucking this, that, and then we got here where we're like super connected all the time. But this is talking about some shit like, you know, Like, this is approaching it as a binary, like a biology perspective and a philosophical perspective. Because what if Graham Hancock was correct and there's ancient civilizations that were way advanced than us, but then a catastrophe happened, like a meteor strike or a giant flood like the Bible talks about, and it just wiped off the population and civilization, and we had a hard reset. It explains the pyramid. How the fuck did they move the pyramids? What engineering did they have to be able to move those massive rocks and form a pyramid? That's what got my brain thinking right now when I listen to this and when I look at this. Like, how?
Once in a while, a safety copy is made, a mind save. Emulation can be stopped and resumed, which will theoretically prolong life in infinity. Can you combine minds? You can. That's how the issue of sexual reproduction gradually disappears. What's going on in politics? The progressive encourage the elderly to use emulation. Some countries experiment with politics and economy, controlled by fast processes, not people. Both governments and citizens come off quite well with this, whereas conservative parties focus too much on the past, being above all preoccupied with the increasing dissolution of national borders. The number of military conflicts decreases. Army aircraft are remodeled into autonomous weapons. The pilot's profession is now a thing of the past. The same goes for troops. Protests still serve to regulate the speed of progress, as always. This really is a problem. Speed of protests still serve to regulate the speed of progress, as always. This really is a problem. The unemployed go crazy en masse. Suicides among animals are harder to explain. No wonder if cities clean themselves up. Everything happens by itself. A few hundred years go by. What's up in architecture? The gaudy motleys in retreat. Finally.
What can you do but hope this ain't true, you feel me? What can you do?
Future is easy to discuss in the context of a glamorous metropolis. What's with the countryside? In Poland, for instance. Górczyca 800 years later. Even though the pollution and salt water problems have been solved, there's recurrent concern for energy resources. Everything eats them up. Only work in a simulated environment uses less material resources. Many spheres of life are transferred entirely into the connectome. World population, traditionally understood, starts to slowly decrease. Not because there's not enough people. It's just that humanity changes its state of matter into a more frugal one. Corporeality is no longer energetically profitable. Almost everything happens inside the connectome, whole lives. A huge part focuses on automaton production. It's a new industrial revolution of sorts. This goes on for a few hundred years. Automatons build more servers, buildings. I don't mean constructions only. The KnTapparel learns in a way beyond reason. Cores. Here are national symbols and big razors. Our intellectual advantage is lost. Automatons do all right in the outside world, but now it's almost inaccessible for physical beings. Only the toughest stay there, their children and some fortified plants. Bodily persons follow the fate of Aborigines from a few thousand years before. This disturbing thing is utility fog. It helps control the weather and facilitates many other dispersed tasks. Local temperatures are regulated in accordance with the calculation centre's needs. Subsequent inventions result simply from life's inert tendency towards a possibly optimal information transfer. Are there any conflicts at all? There are. They involve competing for energy resources for your own network. The usual thing, basically. KnTapparel Area AO232 is the first to create an apparatus to draw energy directly from the sun. These are, among others, Dyson rings, ridiculed in 2014. The patent is sold to other networks, exchanged for access to their energy sources. Even the
Now we're really getting into, I mean, we were kind of messing with like dystopian future that a lot of people probably think it's going to happen, but like putting a Dyson ring, I think that's when you put a ring around the sun and harvest its energy and transfer it back. I think I heard it somewhere or watched a video on this. So we're really going into sci-fi. So just keep in mind, you guys, as you watch this, this is all pretty much sci-fi. The future is still unknown and no need to have existential thoughts. Let's just enjoy the documentary for what it is. I mean, at this point, it's like a sci-fi, it was a documentary in the beginning, but now it's kind of going into
every photon starts to count. Space travel is mainly base transceiver station installation. But even the largest transports start with no witness by now. Individual bodies don't exist for some time now. What counts is activity patterns in the network. See, this is a second level of civilization. The KnTapparel takes the energy for it from nearby stars. Is there space in it for less practical things, the equivalents of music or sense of humor? That's hard to guess. The old world looks extremely functional. No need for colors, as there are no eyes. Server facilities are placed in an extremely efficient way. To us, that's a sorry sight, but we only see the outside effect of these actions. Because what happens inside these networks is inconceivable for a single brain. No use in trying. What's next?
life all over again.
It happens for whole planets to get covered in something like paper clips, as the local network made faulty nanomachines. Perhaps this is a form of sense of humor. Well, and then it's a nightmare of a schizophrenic from the human perspective, the third level of civilization. Stations for energy intake from galaxies are distributed onto large areas of the cosmos. No aerials or fiber optics. There's less and less matter in general. It's starting to resemble a thoughtful vacuum of an increasingly less random flux. It can be suspected that a recreational activity of the network is to simulate the old times. Life on Earth, for instance. Just as we would once frisk through atoms, here it's dimensions that are frisked through. The old sun and its surroundings have long died out, sucked out of any photon remains. The thing is grabbing increasingly larger areas. I don't know. I can also try to show it as perfectly distributed points of transmission. New vacuum trembles incomprehensibly. I don't know what's next.
Is that it? Almost. Photon. I think it's just credits now. Wow, what a amazing documentary. A scientist explains to a journalist how atoms formed in the early universe and how the world has developed to the present day. When pressed, he gives his opinion on what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, this one was a really good, very dark, but still there's a lot of information in the beginning, you know. But man, I love that. I love that documentary. It was super fun to watch. Interesting to watch. Fun is probably a wrong word. Very interesting watch. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought-provoking, emotional, provokes emotion. And, you know, just kind of humbles you a little bit. Anyway, that's the video, everyone. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let me know down in the comments below if you want me to react to any video, something like this, similar to this, and you want me to take a look at it. Just let me know in the comments. Thanks.